Hi, just wanted to take you through my production setup using the Universal Title Controller to control a vMix production. To begin with, I'll show you my vMix production really quick, and it's a typical production made up of all kinds of input types. There are live captured inputs, there are GT titles, there are call inputs, there are various lists, including a video playback list or a slate list. There's also a background list, a couple of loops, and some audio inputs as well. So that's just the basic vMix show that I've got going here. So the part I want to highlight is the universal title controller, which I'll just maximize here for now. You can see that I just use the top portion of it, and that's just so that I can run this universal title controller alongside or just above my vMix show on the same display on my computer here. I use my secondary display for my multi-viewer. So that's kind of my layout here. So just to talk about my vMix controller and what it does all kinds of things. First thing it does is it can take your sources. So the middle portion here, sources to preview, are just shortcuts to the inputs. So call 1, 3, 5. They're all here. They all load the input into preview, and then I can take it to program, and I can do that through my transitions area, fade or a merge or a cut, whatever it may be. I will just go back to this here. I also have some lower thirds, as I mentioned. I call them titles in this particular case. So this button just brings in the title and it takes it away. And there's a countdown button. I have a countdown clock, and by putting that in, it brings that clock into play over here as a overlay. I can, going back to my titles, these are coming from a data source, and it is a Google Sheet, and I can just toggle through the different titles by clicking here, and this is just selecting next and previous line on that particular Google Sheet. So if you have access to that Google Sheet, or if anyone has access to that Google Sheet, they can make changes to the titles in real time, and that can be brought into production in real time. So if there's like a agenda change, or if there's a spelling error or that sort of thing, Google Sheets is a real handy way of addressing those changes that need to be done immediately. Now the other thing that I've built in here, again with this title, is in the UTC. This is still UTC. It's another page. I can actually change the title directly in real time. So you can see that it's Rory McIlroy is on program right now. And so if I wanted to change him, let's say he quit golf and he became an amateur golfer, or I can say, a good golfer, you can see that changes in real time right there on the fly. And so again, that's pretty handy if something comes up at the last minute, you can actually change your lower thirds directly through that method here. What's good to know is that that does not affect the Google Sheet, so I'm not overwriting the Google Sheet. So if I go back with my title back to Max, and then again back to Rory, you see that it still says professional golfer. So that's still calling up what's on the Google Sheet, has no bearing. If I go back to that edit over here, if I was to hit the sync button on the UTC, and keep your eye on this part here that we had changed before. If I just hit sync, it'll return and sync up to what's actually live on program at the moment. So that's that part of it here. The same goes with this countdown clock. I'll take this title away here and bring in the countdown timer. You see event begins in 00. Well, this is because the time I've got set here has already passed. So if I go over here to my event begins in, and I'm going to say it's going to start at 5 p.m. So if I put in 5 p.m., now it's counting down. As you can see here, it's counting down to 5 p.m., so 52 minutes in this particular case. You can also change the text where it says event begins in. You can change that the same way you did with the lower thirds. You can change that just by typing in, just overwriting what's on there. So event begins in, about 52 minutes, because we all know that events don't actually start exactly on time all the time. So we also mentioned that for the for the backgrounds, I can change the backgrounds, which are a list. So what I'll do is I'll bring up a multi-view input. So I will bring up this one here, which I call one pres A bus. It's called one pres A bus. That's the name of the input. And what this means in my head, it means that it's used for a single presenter who would typically be in box number 1, and they would be speaking with a slideshow, which would typically be in box 4. But you can change that around any way you like. Let's just focus on the background. So you can see I've got this background here. I can change that by just toggling through my different backgrounds that I've built in here. So I have, a few. And again, these are just on the list. So if I take you down to my list over here, and so here's the backgrounds, you can see that I have several backgrounds that we can use at any time if we needed to. So that's what that's all about. So I will just advance to the background I want to use. In this case, it's this one here. The same goes with any video clip playback. So I mentioned that I have a video input, so it's called video playback. It's here. And right now I've got clip number 1 loaded up. In this show, I have 3 clips already listed on here. One's called clip 1. The second one here is called this, which is really kind of silly. You can rename any of these things by editing them. So I can just call this clip 2 and it will appear as clip 2 now. So again, using the button here for video clip select, I can go over to the next clip and you can see that in the preview that it's loaded up clip number 2, or I can go to the next one, which is this one, which is the 3rd clip in the list, or I can go back to the beginning. So if I go over here, that clip is now in the gate, and when I take that to program, it'll start playing. So that's some of the functionality that I've built into my UTC controller. The last part that I want to talk about is this left part here of the controller, which is called multi-view assign. And what this allows me to do is take a multi-view input. So for instance, let's say I take my one pres A bus, and I know that that the person who's going to be talking is in the studio and he's going to be camera 1. I can take camera 1, click on it, and assign it to box 1. And so now camera 1 is in box 1. And if I know that that presenter is talking to a PowerPoint deck that I've called graphics, I can take the graphics input and pop that into that box there. And so that is now ready to go for the show. Now, I have several of these multi-views or composite inputs created, and they look like, so you saw that one there. There's one that includes, let's say, 2 presenters and a larger box, one with 3 presenters or 3 smaller boxes and a larger box, and then I have just a plain 2 box, which are the same size, a 3 box and a 4 box. Where you see the alt under these, it's just I've built in an alternating version of that 3 box. Same with the 2 box, you can have it that way or that way, and same with this one here, it can be this way or it can be that way. Now, in the case where I'm on a show where I have the camera 1 talking to their slides, and then we know we're going to bring in a remote caller in the exact same layout here, if I was to change this A bus input over here, it would obviously, because it's live to program over here, it's going to switch it live, which we don't want to do. We want to load this second presenter and put him in the gate. So what we can do here is I've created a duplicate of all of these top inputs. I've created duplicate inputs below here, and they're different in that they're just called B bus. So their name is now Pres B bus, where this one was Pres A bus, this one's called Pres B bus. So completely different input, but it's exactly the same layout. So what I can do now is I can still keep the PowerPoint show in box 4, so I can do graphics into here, and then I can put that caller into box 1, call 1, and pop them into box 1. So now Pres B bus has the next person up. So when this presenter is finished and they throw to the next person, we've got them ready to go in the gate, and we can just fade them in, and now they're in program. Then we can do that for all of these layouts as we like. Now, in the case where we know we want to use this layout, let's say this is our go-to layout, camera one and the graphics, and we're going to use that all the time, it might be an idea to maybe save that and so that we can use it over and over. And so that's why I created these PST inputs. And so I've created like 32 of these inputs. There's only 24 buttons shown here. I do have more buttons hidden away on a different page here. So there's some more of these here, but these PSTs I created so that I can essentially copy what's in the input that we like. We can copy that to a PST, and then we can bring up that PST anytime during the show, and it has no bearing on what's happening with these inputs over here. And so to do that is a simple matter of going to our PST inputs here. Let me close this list here. So like I said, I've got 32 inputs. So we'll take the first input here. Just going to expand it. You can see that right now it's got some other layout in there. I'm going to overwrite that, so I'm going to hit the gear at the bottom, and then on the bottom left of that I'm going to hit the copy from. I'm going to ensure that layers are selected. Under source, I'm going to find the source that I want to copy from, and it happens to be Pres A bus. So we'll just scroll down till we find Pres A bus. So here it is, Pres A bus. Click that, click OK, and now that PST input is made up of camera 1 and the graphics. So if I bring up PST1, there it is. So let's go back to this A bus that we copied from. So again, just remember that I can overwrite this now at any time and put a different program in here anytime, and it does not affect what's in my PST1. PST1 is always that go-to. It's always ready to go. So these are more for live switching in a show where you're not quite sure who's going to be on the screen. So you can switch live very quickly. You can change the multi-view layer composition. And the PSTs are more for layouts or for compositions that you already know are locked and they're not going to change for the show.